Hey guys, welcome back to IDP Plus Trends. We are talking week three, going into week three, players to stash. We got some running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and some IDP players for you guys this week. So, welcome aboard. Our first position we're looking at is the running back position. I am going to start it off with somebody who I talked about last week on our show, and that is Keaton Mitchell for the Baltimore Ravens. He is only owned in 12% of Yahoo leagues. I think Keaton Mitchell, once he comes back week five, whether it be week 5 or 6, I think he's going to have some value, especially down the stretch for your fantasy seasons this year. That doesn't mean it's going to be immediate impact, but I do expect somebody who was leading the league in yards per carry last season to pick up where they left off. And I know Derrick Henry's there. He's not going to be the number one back, but Keaton Mitchell, I think, deserves some respect. So I think in only 12% of Yahoo leagues, this is somebody who's going to make a difference at some point this season. He's going to be a waiver wire find. So you might as well go ahead and pick him up for free right now before everyone kind of, breaks the news, latches onto him. Next is somebody who's going to be relevant at least week 3, and that is Cam Akers, owned in 26% of Yahoo leagues. Two things for me here. Cam Akers is going to be the lead back. Joe Mixon is doubtful to play, and Dameon Pierce is out already. So to me, Cam Akers, like if you're in a deeper league and maybe you had a 0 running back strategy, maybe you had some injuries, this is a great play. I mean, he's just going to get touches. And the second point to this play is it's a revenge game. I mean, he played for Minnesota. So, I mean, if you're someone who believes in those kind of revenge games like myself, I think Cam Akers is a sneaky running back play. And those are my 2 running backs. Steve, I'm going to pass it over to you for yours.
Yeah, I got 2 running backs as well. The first one I'm going to mention, I'm surprised how available he is, but I've got Braelon Allen for the Jets. If you guys watched the Thursday night game, I think it was the second series he came in and took over. I mean, almost that whole drive, which, as a Brees Hall owner on one of my redraft leagues, I was kind of like, wanted to throw my remote at the TV. Brees Hall still did fine. He's still the primary back. You can tell that the way this Jets offense is kind of being built right now or being utilized is they don't want to put all the pressure and all the throws onto Aaron Rodgers. I think they really truly want to use a 2-back system at this point. And Braelon Allen just looks like a man among boys. Like this, he's 6'2". He just runs heavy, but he doesn't run upright, which is great. So I mean, the fact that he is available, I think 36%. I think he's only rostered 36% in leagues in Yahoo. He's got a PFF grade of 90 in the run aspect, so he's doing a great job. He does have to work on pass blocking, which is where I think Brees Hall obviously still has the edge. And I mean, the Jets hit a home run on this one, and the fact that Braelon Allen is not on a lot of rosters, especially for folks who have Brees Hall, he needs to be handcuffed right now because all it takes is some little tweak. If Brees Hall mixes, let's look at Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason owners are super elated that they have him. And if you can get Braelon Allen, and if you were to give a starting job opportunity in New York, man, the way he's running, he can be a league winner. Another guy you should stash because it's inevitable is Ty Chandler. I think for the Minnesota Vikings, Aaron Jones has a streak of missing games, 2, 3, sometimes even 4. It always seems to be some hamstring or something like that. So there's a good chance that he misses time. And Ty Chandler is going to have the opportunity to really shine. And Ty Chandler's done a really good job filling in even with Aaron Jones. And Aaron Jones already has some injuries, coming into this week as a questionable tag. So he's only rostered in 38% of leagues. Again, another running back that I think is just being forgotten about, or maybe it's because a lot of people have, I think it's just because the way Minnesota is, they're not wowed by Sam Darnold, even though he was very impressive against a really tough 49ers defense without Justin Jefferson. I think you got to give more credit to this backfield. Aaron Jones has done pretty well. He's going to have some injuries. I hate to say it, but I think Ty Chandler is a great pickup. If you have a deep enough roster, you should absolutely be stashing him for sure.
Yeah, I do like both of these guys, especially in deeper leagues. The deeper you get, the more valuable they are. Allen's somebody who's probably, since he's played, you probably can't go pick him up right now. It's a nice week 3 or week 4 waiver find. So that's a great find. And then for Chandler too, he some might say he outplayed Aaron Jones this week. So like both of those picks, Steve, for deeper leagues especially. Moving on to the wide receivers, I got some deep dart throws here. I mean, this is where the bread and butter is finding these deep wide receivers. And the first one I'm going to talk about, if you're in like maybe a 14, 16 man league, this is somebody who sneaky owners might have already sniffed out, and that is Jordan Whittington from the LA Rams. He gets a matchup this week versus San Francisco. Didn't do a whole lot last week, played 50% of snaps, 2 catches for 22 yards. The thing with Whittington is you don't really look in the rearview mirror. Kupp was at least playing in the beginning of that game before he got hurt. I know they had Puka out already, but you kind of have to look in your crystal ball and say Jordan Whittington is somebody who, could have sneaky value here. He's somebody who shined in the preseason. He has opportunity. He kind of has like a Puka Nacua kind of vibe to him. So I think Jordan Whittington is just, the stars align perfectly for him to finally make some noise and carry that momentum from the preseason into the regular season here in week 3. And I think this is a fine stash. I'm actually starting him in a league because I believe that much in him. So at only 6% owned versus San Francisco, I think they're going to have to throw the ball, especially when their top 2 wide receivers are out. Whittington is a fine play in a deep, very deep league, 16 or more, man league, and I think he's going to actually be a good, bye week filler and somebody who has value coming up these next couple weeks. So Jordan Whittington, 6%. My next guy is perhaps even a deeper dart throw, partly because the team and partly because he missed last week, and that's Devaughn Vele from Denver, only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Gets a matchup this week versus Tampa Bay. The week 1, you can't look at week 2. He didn't play, but week 1, 8 targets, 8 catches for 39 yards. And I know the yardage is not anything to, hang your hat on, but somebody who's getting 8 targets in a game, Cortland Sutton got 12 in that game. So I'm not saying he's their number 1 receiver, but is technically a 2 or number 3 receiver there in Denver, a team that's going to have to be forced to throw the ball often. I think Devaughn Vele, at least in 16-man leagues, deserves attention to be rostered. Don't think he's a must start or anything like that, but if he can kind of build on that week 1 game coming back from injury, I think there is some kind of like Puka Nacua intrigue if that's the player we were looking for. And I'm not saying he's going to have that big of a year. Probably not going to be the rookie of the year. Safe bet there. But at the same time, I think Vele might have some deep league appeal there. So, Steve, those are my 2 wide receivers. I'm going to pass it back to you now.
So I'm going to put 2 wide receivers on this list as well. I had one, but there was one guy while you were talking, I was thinking about. So Josh Downs is definitely one I want to mention because right now he's coming back from injury. So no one drafted him. No one really took their chances on him unless you're in really deep leagues and you had that because he's only owned in 25% of leagues. So there are people who have been holding on and stashing him. The reason I mentioned him is he had a really good year last year in his rookie season. And I think he's the beneficiary of teams, covering Pittman, and Josh Downs, I think, has the ability because you saw Mitchell have some, targets and some good routes and obviously not a true connection with Anthony Richardson. And that is the biggest, obviously, concern in this whole offense is the fact that they have Anthony Richardson at quarterback who just hasn't been a great passing quarterback. So there are some hesitations with that, but I would still stash Josh Downs, especially because I do think he's going to get a lot more opportunities than I think Michael Pittman does. I love Michael Pittman, but I think this is not the offense built for him. I think he needs to kind of move to a different team, and that's something that could be done in the future. But I like Josh Downs a lot. And the one receiver I want to mention as a stash, and this is just me playing the guessing game. So I have Elijah Moore for the Cleveland Browns. So he's only owned in 2% of leagues. But the reason I mention him is 1, last week he had 8 targets. Very similar to Jerry Jeudy, very similar to Amari Cooper. There's a really good chance, just it's speculation, that Amari Cooper gets traded this year. They owe him, he wants a contract. I don't think they're going to pay him. Amari Cooper looks disinterested in playing for the Cleveland Browns. He's had some big drops this year already. Dropped 1 touchdown from the Cowboys game. He had a big drop last week. It just, something about it just seems to be aligning up. And if that's true, Jeudy becomes the 1 and Elijah Moore becomes the 2. And Elijah Moore had some games last year where he was the 2 and he played very well. And I do think that this says something. I think the fact that there's a good chance that Amari Cooper's gone by the deadline. You got teams that are obviously trying to compete, need wide receivers. I'm not saying the Cowboys, but there's a chance, Cowboys, I could see, again, teams going after a receiver like a vet like him. So Elijah Moore is definitely somebody I'm considering grabbing if I can. And even the fact that he's getting 8 targets or so, that I'll take that for sure.
Yeah, I feel that, man. That's a sneaky play, and I like your Josh Downs take. I have Pittman in a few leagues, so I hope that doesn't come too hard to fruition, but good takes there. So moving over to IDP side of the ball. Before we do, I wanted to mention that IDP Plus, we are running a promo right now. If you have not already got your IDP Plus subscription, start your season off right with an IDP Plus subscription. Get 20% off any subscription for a limited time with your promo code props and get access to our tools, data, props, IDP articles, and don't miss out on our subscriber Discord. So check out idpplus.com first and foremost. And if you want to take up our 20% discount on any subscription, go to idpplus.com/membership and type in the promo code props. So moving over to our IDP side of the ball, Steve, I'm going to mention the first guy. I know you're kind of going to piggyback off me on this one, but my guy is Baylon Spector. This is a deep league kind of target here, but I think somebody who's a good streamer this week, even if you're in a little bit of a shallow league and you don't feel comfortable with what's out there. I know it's not a great matchup versus Jacksonville. I think that's a little bit understated. I think it's a bad matchup per se, but Baylon Spector last week on 82% of snaps when Terrell Bernard exited the game. Terrell Bernard, listen, this is not just a 1 week play like plug and chug here. This might be a 4 or more kind of guarantee here that with Spector and at least snaps, and the production looked good. So to me, I mean, Terrell Bernard, might be a guy who we haven't seen him go on IR yet, but it might be the avenue that the Bills go. So Baylon Spector, I think, is a multi-week fill-in here. A solid IDP linebacker, somebody who you can get bankable tackles off of, and that's what we're looking for when the rubber hits the road. So Baylon Spector at 1% owned on Yahoo. Again, doesn't have to really be a very deep league. If you aren't in a deep league, kudos to you because I think he's a great start. I'd consider him a high-end LB3, at best maybe a low-end LB2. So that is my first guy, Steve. Passing it over to you now.
Yeah, I have Williams, the Bills. So again, he's been filling in really nicely for Milano, who's obviously out for the year. And he's got right now, I think, a total of 19 tackles in 2 games. He's got 11 solos. So again, if tackling is the way your scoring is set up, which most people are rewarding that, great guy to pick up, and should be. And I do expect teams to continue to try to run on Buffalo. I think the linebacking core is obviously dealing with a lot. I said it in some other videos. I give Buffalo a lot of credit because I really thought teams going against Buffalo were going to have some great games. I thought the Buffalo defense was going to regress. They had obviously injuries at linebacker. And then of course they lost a lot of players during free agency and trades. And I just saw a whole new Buffalo defense. And I thought, man, this is going to be an opportunity for Josh Allen to throw a lot and that defense to give up points. But they've actually done a really good job. I do think they get tested against Jacksonville. I do think that this is actually a game that I think Jacksonville could secretly win. If freaking Trevor Lawrence decides to actually turn it up, he's been just really bad this season, but that offense can put up some points if they really focus. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. But I actually like this matchup for Dorian Williams because I do think they're going to try to utilize Bigsby and Etienne quite a bit to try to, I think, keep the ball away from Josh Allen. But I like him a lot for sure.
Yeah, I like that get, bro. So, both of these guys, Spector, Dorian Williams, both solid plays. To be honest with you, I'd rather have Dorian Williams. I think he's a safer bet there to get you about 5 or 10 tackles. But I do like Spector's upside too. So both of these guys, very playable. Moving on, another deeper guy. I'll kind of go deeper to shallow here with mine. Only owned in 2% of Yahoo leagues, and that is Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden coming back from injury, did not play week 1. We saw Darius Masau kind of get the start there. A lot of people had him hyped up. I was kind of hush on him because I was a little bit worried about McFadden coming back Not exactly to this degree, but at least getting his starting role back. He played 79% of snaps, so he's shaking off the rust coming back from injury. I'd expect that number to continue to climb as the weeks go by. So anytime a guy with a track record gets you, double-digit tackle gain, you have attention on this guy. And I think Micah McFadden, New York has a bad run defense. They're going to be down in games. They're going to be, getting the ball ran against them. So I think Micah McFadden here is a sneaky, safe floor, high upside kind of play. Only owned in 2% of Yahoo leagues. So Micah McFadden definitely, if you are in a deeper league, but even in a mid league, not too shallow, but not too deep, somewhere in between, I think Micah McFadden makes a good, solid plug this week and a good matchup versus Cleveland. So that's my second guy, Steve. Passing it back to you.
Yeah, another linebacker I really like this week. It's gonna be for the Chargers, Daiyan Henley, who right now, again, has done a pretty good job. He's got 16 total tackles. He's got 10 solo. I'd love to see a little bit more out of the solo aspect of it, but in 2 games, he's averaging 8 tackles as a game, which is fantastic. You want to see that 8 to 10 range, right? And again, a linebacker that no one's picking up, a linebacker that I think I've learned in my time doing IDP, a lot of people tend to kind of like the Pro Bowl. They go based off of name. You see players that are still being held onto just because of their name. When you start looking at how these players are performing, you've got some guys who are just earning their time and really doing a great job. But because they're not a household name, they're just sitting in free agency. And that's what we're here for, to help you guys, have the ability to grab players, listen to us, kind of give you some advice, because not everyone's listening to our YouTube channel yet. And with that said, I guarantee you have better success winning your league in IDP because of it. Again, this guy's just sitting there. I talked to my buddy. We talk a lot outside of the IDP world, and we were like, man, how is this guy still a free agent in some of the leagues that we've been into? And of course, him and I fight to go pick him up because we have the ability. We like to put a lot of linebackers in if we can. So again, he's sitting there. I think he was only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Obviously, Yahoo's a little skewed because defense is a little different. I think a lot more people are adopting it, but I love the fact that he's there. And again, like anything else, that Chargers defense currently ranked number 1. They've been doing fantastic. I think Harbaugh has done a really great job in LA. I think they lose this weekend, but hey, he's turned that program around slowly, but I think he's going to do a really good job.
Yeah, man, I do agree with that Henley pick. That's someone who I pegged for 9 tackles in week 2, 16 tackles in the first 2 games. And actually, the promise actually looks better. It looks on the rise for him. Only played in 67% of snaps in week 1 and then 90% here in week 2. So big uptick. And, to have a little bit of a limited snap share in week 1 and to have 16 tackles in 2 games is pretty damn impressive. So hats off to Henley. I like that pick a lot. Definitely a guy who's undervalued, only owned in 1% of Yahoo League. So big time slip up for a lot of owners out there. Fix that. Moving on for me, I got one more linebacker, and that is Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson is playing 100% of snaps right now for Carolina. Carolina is a bad team. They will continue to get the ball run on them. I'm interested to see what they do against Vegas this week, but Shaq Thompson, going back to him, 24 tackles in 2 games, playing 100% of snaps, 2 double-digit tackles right off the bat. So, I know they have Josie Jewell there, and I like him too, but Shaq Thompson is just a guy, when he's only rostered in a few percentage of leagues, this guy deserves more attention, So Shaq Thompson, I think, should be, even in shallower leagues, you have a guy like Patrick Queen for the Steelers, who you've gotten low outputs. This is a guy, Shaq Thompson, I'd rather play this week than take the chance with sitting around and waiting for Patrick Queen. So to me, it doesn't have to be a deep league. And if it is, even better. I think that's a big outlier there. And this is somebody who can, have a safe tackle floor and a high ceiling and is way undervalued. So Shaq Thompson is my 3rd out of 3 linebackers. Steve, passing it back to you.
So my last linebacker I want to mention is a good stash and one of my favorite fantasy football or football names in general, Sirvocea Dennis for the Bucks. Right now, he's at 18 tackles total. He's got 11 solo. He's got a sack so far, and he's filling in for the Devin White role. Devin White obviously went to Philly, who now right now doesn't have a job, which is interesting. But he is filling in for that Devin White role, right next to Levante David. He's been outperforming Levante David so far in fantasy, and he's done a really good job kind of stepping into this role. Like, he's doing a fantastic job. And again, no one's talking about. I had him in our waiver wire video earlier this week. I talked about him in the waiver wire video. I talked about him in the waiver wire article. If you guys haven't checked out that on the website, and yet I still haven't seen a lot of percentage change for him. We'll see after this weekend. They go against Denver. Denver's going to try to run the ball because obviously they got to try to take some of that pressure off of Bo Nix. But that's going to backfire pretty quickly if they can't get the running game going, because let's be honest, the Bucs have a really good scoring offense, and they get down that field. Bo Nix is going to have a field day trying to throw. And I think Sirvocea can take advantage of that. I think he's going to obviously have opportunities to, one, get a sack or two in this game. And I do think he's going to have a really good job at, stopping Javonte Williams. So I really like him. Sirvocea definitely needs to be stashed in a lot more leagues. He deserves it, and he's playing really, really well for Tampa.
Yeah, man, I like that Dennis pick. Definitely slept on right now, and credit to his name, he's a Pitt Panther, so I respect that even more. Love that pick. And my last guy, I'll wrap it out with a defensive back, and that is Antonio Johnson. Antonio Johnson, a couple things lined up for him well this year. Number one is Rayshon Jenkins not being there. He is in Seattle, a fine defensive back himself, but that spot is opened up for Antonio Johnson. Alongside Andre Cisco. Andre Cisco is somebody who I just think is not serviceable at all. Doesn't really seem to be the guy getting tackles. Maybe you're banking on a pick or two with him, but that makes it even juicier for Antonio Johnson. Somebody who came in the first two games, week 1 and week 2, for a combined of 14 tackles. This past week 2, he had 5 tackles, a little bit of a down game of production that I would have predicted. I thought he was going to get 6 or 7. So Antonio Johnson only owned in 8% of leagues. This is more than the other guys I had mentioned, but 8% is not heavy, and especially like defensive back is not a position where we're starting 3 or 4 of them, unless you're in a super deep, best ball league or something like that. So Antonio Johnson to me is a fine DB2, the second defensive back you start on your team. I think there's really sneaky upside to him, and especially if they can have leads in games and other teams are throwing on them. But to me, it doesn't matter. He went and did it against Cleveland, 5 tackles. Like, Cleveland was a bad matchup itself. So I think this week versus Buffalo, it's a really promising matchup for Antonio Johnson, and I think he's a fine defensive back number 2. So thank you for rocking with us on this week's show. Continue to keep updated with our IDP Plus Trends show weekly to get your best stashes, your latest news, your topics on different trends upon the NFL. So thank you for rocking with us. If you are just listening and not viewing, I am at Johnny freaking F1 on Twitter, on X, and Steve is at AVGJoes_FF. So best of luck in your week 3 matchups. We will see you on the other side in week 4.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.